like to start off with the question, can we trust a realtor? And of course, in church planning, there's a high likelihood that you will rent a space or lease out a space before you purchase one, whether that's a sublease or just paying weekly rent in a conference room somewhere. But the question is, can we trust the realtor? Does the realtor know where we can have church? Does the realtor know the laws of zoning issues when it comes to leasing a space for a church plant? And I chose to address this first because this was the first problem we ran into when we started the church here in Iowa. We were working with a realtor, good guy, good reputation, didn't have any problems with him. We looked at a couple spaces, found a space that we felt would be great. It was a little office space, but it was all open. It was a new build, so they were going to allow us to section off a space that would be like a nursery, childcare area. There was a bathroom over in the corner. Everything was really going to work out great. It was right on the main highway in town. We signed a lease for $1,050 a month. We started the work. We started putting, I think our lease started in August. We were wanting to, our first date was set for October 11th of 2009, which was on my 30th birthday. And so we were really excited about the day, had handed out thousands of invitations with that date on it, and had really hit the community hard for October 11th, had the address on it. Well, I showed up one day to work at the church as we were building the nursery walls, and there was a nice bright piece of paper on the doors of the church that said "Stop Work" across the top. And the city had seen that we were doing some work there and had stopped the work because they wanted some information from us. Now, leading up to this, I had never been in a city where the codes were strict and that they were watched, and that just wasn't the type of ministries we grew up in. And so it was the farthest thing from my mind was dealing with city codes. So I went up to the city, of course, to let them know I'm not against them. I'm on their side. I want to make this place, this community better, just as they want to make the community better. We may have different methods of doing that, but our goals are the same. And they had informed me that we needed to rezone the building because it was built as an office space, which is private. We need to rezone it for assembly for a church because that would be a public setting. And so in filing that application, it came back as denied, which meant I had a 1-year lease on a building that we could not gather in, we could not meet in, we could not have church there. And the reasoning was, in our city, if it's a public place, a church, anything that's zoned in that way, it is required to have 2 restrooms, one for each gender. And this space only had 1 restroom in it. And so here I had signed a 1-year lease. Our church, our sending church, was giving enough to cover that, and we couldn't have church there. It was a very terrible way to start off a church plant. Now, when we had asked the realtor, of course, he said, yep, no problem. You can have church there. There's nothing that's stopping you from having a church there. And we put all of our trust in the realtor saying he had done the research and he had followed through and he had made sure that we could have a church there. But in the end, no matter how good of a person they are, they're looking for that percentage. They want their funds. You're just another customer. They're not, even if they go to church, they don't have a passion to reach that community like you do. They don't have a desire to, give everybody the gospel in that town the way that you do. They are driven by you being another customer. And so we had trusted this realtor who did not have the accurate information. We signed a lease based on that information. Now, here's the catch. Saying I trusted the wrong person does not get you out of that lease. It is your responsibility to find out whether or not that place can be zoned properly for you to meet there and to gather there. And so saying I don't know, playing ignorant, whether it's playing or not being ignorant, does not excuse you from your responsibility of knowing the laws of that particular city, that particular area. And so it's very important that you follow with the city. Now, just so you know what happened on our end, the Lord really struck a great friendship between myself and the building inspector. And he allowed us to get the neighboring business to type up a document saying that we could use their restroom during services, but on our restroom door, remember we only had one restroom, on our restroom door we had to either put men or ladies. It could not just say restroom. And so we had one bathroom and it said ladies, which meant every visitor who came asked, where do I use the restroom? Now, truthfully, we never used the neighbors. We just told everybody to use that one. It was more of satisfying the city, I guess. We did have a key to that building. We did have access to that restroom, but we didn't send people over there unless it was absolutely necessary. I'd like to add a side note here. This delay took us about 2 months. All the literature we had handed out with the October 11th date was now inaccurate, and we weren't able to start until December 6th. And by the time we got new literature printed and delivered to us, we were only able to get out a fraction of the invitations that we had desired. But it's very important to check with your cities on this. Let me give you another example of this and how this had helped somebody else. Tommy Adams he still is a good friend of mine. He's in Benton, Arkansas now. He was going to start a church here in Iowa, and he was on his way to sign a lease on a building. And he had called me and said, "I'm on my way to sign a lease. Anything come to your mind that I should check?" I said, "Well, actually, here's what we ran into. Why don't you stop by City Hall and just make sure that that building can be a church?" And his response was, just like mine would have been if somebody would have asked me, "Well, I talked to the realtor and he said it's fine." Um, and so I said, "Well, that's what I had done. If you're going to be close to the city hall, it would be worth it. Just stop in and ask somebody." Well, about 45 minutes later or so, I got a call from Brother Tommy Adams, and he said, "I stopped by City Hall, and that building that we were going to sign a lease on was in a historic part of the city, and no churches are allowed." And so he would have found himself in the same situation. However, in his situation, with it being a city ordinance, no churches allowed, there's no way he would have got out of that, and it would have been a very difficult financial burden for him and those who shared that burden. And so I just want to maybe start this page off with some things that I learned the hard way. And maybe it'll be a help and a blessing to somebody. If you know somebody who's church planting or thinking about it, or you know a pastor who has church planters in his church and maybe they don't deal a lot with city codes, send them over to this page. And I believe we're going to go through some things, not just that I learned the hard way, but also some things that we've learned by talking to other people as well. Next week, we're going to get into renting hotel conference rooms and subletting. So, if there's a building that doesn't use their building on Sunday, it's a commercial building, but they don't use it on Sunday, and they tell me we can use it on Sunday, is that something that's legal? Is that something that's wise? Is that something that should be done? What are the precautions we should take on that? And so that'll be next week's video. I trust this is a help to you as we get started in this. And I just want to help church planners. I want us to be able to take our funds where they need to go. I want us to be able to reach our communities. And I don't know how to build churches, how to start churches. So if the question is how do we start churches, I still don't know. If anybody puts out a book that says here's how to start a church, don't buy it. Because you're not in their city, you're not in their shoes, you don't have their personality, the same people aren't there. God's plan for you is different than God's plan for them. And then remember this as a bit of encouragement. God told Noah that it was going to rain, but he did not tell them that they would be in the boat a long time alone. But it was just as much God's plan as the rain. So God's going to put on your heart to start a church, but you don't know how long you're going to be alone in that boat. but it's just as much God's plan. You just stay faithful and be where God wants you to be. Trust us as a help as we get started on this page. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in, and we'll do our best to answer those in upcoming videos or interviews with others who have been in the church planning shoes. God bless. If you ever need anything, be sure and let me know.